The voice from the Coast Guard radio was final, metallic, and devoid of hope. "Morning Star, do you copy?" "Abandoned ship." "I repeat, abandoned ship." On the bridge, Captain Eva Rostova listened to this death sentence coming through the crackling speaker and didn't hesitate for a moment. Through the fog, the monstrous silhouette of the massive cargo ship, rising like a cursed mountain, was seconds from impact. The passengers' panicked screams seeped through the steel walls to the bridge. Her young, by-the-book first mate, Alex, was fumbling with the latches on the lifeboats, his face white as a sheet. "Captain, you heard the order. We have to," he shouted. But Captain Eva Rostova switched off the radio. She ignored the evacuation order as if it were a meaningless whisper from a distant planet. She turned the wheel, not away from the disaster, but hard towards the jagged rocks known as the Devil's Teeth, a place not shown on any official chart. She was choosing a different kind of death, or a secret way out. It had all started 20 minutes earlier, with a supernatural blanket of fog that even the sun struggled to pierce. The ferry, Morning Star, was on its routine morning run between the mainland and the island. Eva had been on these waters for 30 years. She knew every current, every wind, every secret of this harbor. But this fog, this was different. It hadn't rolled in from the coast. It had risen suddenly from the sea, wrapping the ship in a damp, cotton-like shroud. It was even tricking the radar, leaving ghost echoes on the screen. "Radar looks clear, Captain," Alex had said, his confidence full. "But I have a weird feeling." Eva hadn't answered. She felt the same thing. This wasn't the silence of the sea. This was the silence of a predator waiting for its prey. And then the predator revealed itself. From the fog, as if appearing from another dimension, emerged the massive, rusted cargo ship named Erebus. Its lights were off, its transponder was silent, and it wasn't responding to radio calls. It was a true ghost ship. "Full reverse," Eva had roared. But it was too late. The giant hull of the Erebus struck the side of the Morning Star like a hammer. The collision shook the entire ship like an earthquake. Passengers were thrown to the floor. Chairs flew from the deck into the sea. The damage wasn't fatal, but it was strategic. The main helm control and throttles on the bridge were dead. The ship, with its engines still running but without direction, was at the mercy of the current, and the current was dragging them straight towards the Devil's Teeth. That's when the call from the Coast Guard had come. Their calculation was simple: a disabled ferry, a ghost cargo ship, and shredding rocks. The only logical outcome was to save the people. But Eva knew the secret variable in that equation. She locked the door to the bridge. Alex looked at her in shock. "Captain, what are you doing? You're leading these people to their deaths." Eva grabbed Alex by the collar and pinned him against the wall. Her strength surprised the young man. "Protocol," Eva hissed, "orders an inevitable death on those rocks. My way gives us a chance. Now get down to the engine room and engage the emergency manual rudder. I'll give you commands from here. You either follow my orders, or I'll lock you in that closet. Make your choice." Alex saw the steel-like determination in Eva's eyes. This wasn't the look of a madwoman, but of a commander who had calculated everything. He hesitated, then nodded and ran towards the engine room. Eva took her place at the ship's old brass wheel. She closed her eyes and tried to remember her father's voice. "Maps lie, girl," he used to say. "But the sea whispers the truth. You just have to know how to listen." Eva listened. Alex's voice came over the intercom. "Manual rudder engaged, Captain." 10 degrees to starboard, now!" Eva shouted. The ship turned with a painful groan. a giant rock passing by them with inches to spare. Eva was following the rhythm her father had taught her. Wait for 3 waves, turn on the 4th. Listen to the echo. Fight against the pull of the current. After 15 minutes of hell, the ferry suddenly entered calm waters. They had entered a secret cove behind the rocks where even the fog was thinner. The danger had passed. Alex returned to the bridge. There was a mixture of awe and shame on his face. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know?" Eva looked out at the sea within the fog. "This harbor has secrets. My father taught them to me." But just then, as the fog cleared a little, they realized they were not alone in the cove. A fast, unmarked boat was waiting for them silently. A man on the boat signaled to them. At that moment, one of the passengers on the ferry, a quiet man in a simple suit who had attracted no one's attention during the journey, approached Eva. "Thank you, Captain," he said. "You saved us all." The man lifted the collar of his jacket. Underneath, the badge of a federal agent gleamed. "My name is Agent Cole. I'm tasked with protecting a witness on this ship." And the Erebus was no accident. It was an assassination attempt organized by the cartel he is set to testify against. Eva remembered her father's last words. Sometimes the real monsters are the men in the other ships. Just then, 3 small, fast boats burst out of the fog at the entrance of the cove. They were filled with heavily armed men. The cartel had not given up on their witness. Agent Cole was in shock as he drew his weapon. "This is impossible," he shouted. "They shouldn't know about this place. It's not on any chart. There's a mole on this ship. They're feeding them our position." Eva's blood ran cold. The danger wasn't just outside, it was inside. They were trapped, and with a traitor. "Captain, we have to use your radio to call for help," Cole said. Eva shook her head. "The radio frequencies might be monitored. If they hear us calling for help, they'll attack immediately. We have to find the mole first, quietly." Eva and Cole quickly assessed the situation on the bridge. Who could be the suspects? First, mate Alex had insisted on following protocol and abandoning the ship. Was his panic a ruse? The old engineer in the engine room controlled the ship's heart. Could he have sent a signal? Or was there someone among the passengers, quietly watching everything? Eva remembered another lesson from her father. People always look for complicated things, Eva. Satellite phones, secret radios. But the best secrets are hidden in the simplest things. While Cole tried to check the passenger list, Eva left the bridge and went down to the deck. The passengers had retreated into the cabins in fear. Eva walked calmly on the deck, her eyes scanning every detail. A life jacket, a displaced tarp, a cigarette butt thrown on the deck. Then, at the stern of the ship, she saw a young deckhand whom no one paid much attention to. The boy was pretending to coil a rope, but his hands were trembling. Eva approached. "Is everything all right, son?" The young man, without lifting his head, said, "Yes, Captain." But Eva noticed the emergency signal buoy in his hand. It was standard equipment, but a small modification on it had turned it into a transmitter that sent short, coded signals. It was one of the old smuggling tricks her father used. "Was your father a sailor, too?" Eva asked, her voice ice cold. The young man froze. In that moment, he knew he had been caught. He tried to throw the buoy into the sea, but Eva was faster. For a moment, the calm captain of the harbor was gone, replaced by a tough woman fighting for survival. She threw the young man to the ground and took the transmitter from his hand. "The mole has been found," she whispered to herself. Agent Cole ran to her side. Eva showed him the transmitter. Now it's time to play the game by their rules. They returned to the bridge. The cartel boats outside were circling impatiently, waiting for a final signal. Eva turned to Agent Cole. "Can you tell me about the acoustic map of those rocks?" Cole looked at her in surprise. "That's classified information." "Our lives depend on it right now, Agent," Eva said. Cole explained that the narrowest point at the entrance of the Needle's Eye reflected and amplified sound waves in an incredible way. Eva smiled. Her father used to call this place the Devil's Amphitheater. They forced the traitorous deckhand to the transmitter and had him send a fake signal, saying that the witness had transferred to their boat and was waiting at the entrance of the Needle's Eye. The largest of the cartel's boats, in a triumphant mood, sped towards the narrow channel. Just as they reached the narrowest point called the Devil's Amphitheater, Eva blasted the ferry's massive foghorn with a special rhythm her father had taught her. The sound waves, trapped in the narrow channel, were amplified tenfold, turning into a hellish noise that shattered the navigation of the cartel boat. The boat, out of control, crashed into the rocks. At that moment, the Coast Guard helicopter finally arrived at the scene. A week after the incident, Eva found herself in a cold, official inquiry room. Across from her sat the stern-faced investigator from the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, Sterling, and the ferry company's lawyers. Agent Cole's miracle report hadn't been enough to prevent an official investigation. Investigator Sterling slammed the file on the table. "Captain Rostova, can you explain why you disobeyed a direct order to abandon ship and endangered the lives of 200 passengers by steering into a reef system known as the Devil's Teeth?" Eva remained calm. "Because that order was a death sentence for my passengers, investigator. The lifeboats wouldn't have lasted a second in those waves." The company lawyer interjected. "But you chose a dangerous route not on any chart. This is recklessness." "This was survival," Eva replied. Her first mate, Alex, under pressure, had to testify that Eva's actions were off protocol and extremely risky. Eva was alone in the room. She couldn't talk about the cartel or the secret witness. She was being judged solely as a sailor. The investigation was turning against her. The cancellation of her license and even a prison sentence were on the table. Just as all hope was fading, Agent Cole made his move from behind the scenes. He leaked a heavily redacted file, stamped top secret, to Investigator Sterling. The file didn't mention the witness or the mission, but it proved the connection of the Erebus cargo ship to an international smuggling ring, and that its presence in those waters that day was no accident. Cole's second move was even more surprising. On the last day of the investigation, the door opened and an old man in a wheelchair entered. This was Admiral James Petrov, the country's greatest living naval architect and hydrography expert. Petrov looked at the maps and tidal models placed before him. "The Needle's Eye," he murmured. "In my youth, we used to smuggle illegal rum through that passage with your father, Eva." The room went ice cold. Then he turned to the investigator. "This passage is not a legend, and I can tell you this. Considering the current and the ship's damage that day, the route Captain Rostova chose was, mathematically, the only route that had any chance of survival. What she did was not recklessness. It is a feat of seamanship rarely seen in this century." Admiral Petrov's testimony in the Erebus file completely changed the course of the investigation. Investigator Sterling, in her closing report, had to describe Captain Rostova's actions as an unorthodox but ultimately heroic decision that saved all lives. Eva's name was cleared, but she felt a void inside. Her heroism felt like it was one with a smuggler's tricks. That evening at home, she opened her father's old sea chest. Among the belongings she hadn't touched in years, she found a secret compartment she had never noticed before. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a small logbook. It was her father's private journal. As she turned the pages, an entry from 1942 caught her eye. Her father wrote that he had been hired by a mysterious man to transport precious cargo. He had thought the cargo was illegal liquor. But when he arrived at the rendezvous point, he found a scientist and his family fleeing Nazi-occupied France. Just as he was taking them onto his boat, a German patrol boat had appeared. Her father hadn't hesitated. That night, he had used the needle's eye not for profit, but to save that family. He had written in the logbook, "Some laws are written in ink. Others are written in blood and salt. Today, I chose the sea's law." Eva closed the logbook. Tears were streaming down her face. Her father wasn't just a smuggler. He too was a quiet hero who broke the rules to do the right thing, just like her. In that moment, Eva made peace with her own legacy. This wasn't just smuggling knowledge, it was the courage to do the right thing at the right time. The next day, Eva Rostova was on the bridge of her repaired ferry. Next to her stood her now unshakably loyal first mate, Alex. As they left the harbor, she looked towards the Devil's Teeth. She knew that some maps are not drawn on paper, but in blood and memory, and that the quietest captains are often the guardians of the most important secrets.